Forkast.News is your gateway to all things blockchain. We do the deep dive and the due diligence on the blockchain projects and platforms that matter, because we aim to be the most reliable source of intellectual discourse and insight that inform, educate, and bridge the gap between the blockchain industry and the mainstream. Welcome to this special edition in Switzerland. It's a country that is seemingly almost working in unison at almost every level, from the government to industry groups to even the startup hubs. They are working in unison on the promise of DLT. And I'm here at one of the most prestigious addresses in Zurich right now. It's across the street from the National Bank of Switzerland. And it is number 3 Bahnhofstrasse, which is the European equivalent of Wall Street, you've heard of that, or even Bond Street in London. And I'm here with founder and CEO of Trust Square. Danny Geisteiger joins us right now. You joined blockchain, and you got interested in blockchain as a banker. Tell us about the story of your transition from one of the top banks in Switzerland to where we are right now at Trust Square.
Well, it all started in 2014 when I first started reading about blockchain. Obviously, at the time, it was all about Bitcoin, and at the time, Ethereum was coming to Switzerland. They incorporated their foundation here, so it was kind of starting to become what is now known as a crypto valley. So I got interested. It was also the time of my career that I started to think, okay, now I'm turning 40, so I would like to do something probably else for the second part of my career. And so I started looking around for topics, and I started getting more into this topic of blockchain. As a banker, obviously, it would have been natural for me to get into this cryptocurrency trading and all the speculation and hype about it. But I then went basically to a study trip to Silicon Valley, read a lot of books there, and I basically met a few people that are at the time were already thought leaders in the topic. And I discovered that blockchain is much more than just the cryptocurrency topic. It's about decentralization. It's about what Switzerland is all about, giving power to the individual in every aspect, not just the financial context. And so really with that, I started deciding to pursue my second half of my career in that space and become an entrepreneur.
And the entrepreneurial path brought you to blockchain and wanting to nurture and foster that talent. You created and founded Trust Square along with other founders. Tell us about Trust Square. What is this as a resource to the industry?
Trust Square was meant to be, and is actually now, a hub in Zurich, in the center of Zurich, and so near the financial center, in the middle of the financial center for that, that brings together the startups and the academic side of things. So when we started, our focus was really to kind of combine all the startups that were scattered all over Zurich into this hub, and then combine them together with our university that we have here in Zurich. We have the University of Zurich, we have ETH, which is Technical University, and really foster that ecosystem with these two partners. And personally, we have done with my own startup a partnership with the University of Zurich to develop an e-voting solution with the professor of IT there. And others have been working together with the academic partners like this. So this was the original goal. And the second and the third pillar was to educate. We have a big main meeting room upstairs where we do host a lot of meetups. We do a lot of, yesterday we had academic meetup again with the University of Basel, where we educate, where we explain. We have event series we have an event series called Women in Blockchain, where women can come and learn to start code with blockchain. And so a lot of things are happening. So education together with the academics and the startups were the focus at the beginning of Trust Square. And now we have 40 startups here, more than 40 actually. We have, I think, by far the biggest hub at such a scale in the world with 3,500 square meters. And yeah, that's how it all started and developed.
You get a lot of visitors from around the world. Governments come, industry groups come, blockchain startups come to check it out. Why are they interested in coming here? What are they interested in learning from you and really learning from the ecosystem in Switzerland?
International delegations that visit us obviously are interested how it happens that Switzerland became, I think, one of the leaders in the blockchain space by having a lot of startups here. I think we have more than 800 companies working with blockchain one way or another, startups, companies that have now formed their own expertise in-house. How that happened. I mean, it's obviously the same story like in the 80s and 90s with the internet. In Silicon Valley, we had here a very favorable regulation since the beginning. 2014, that's another reason why I actually was interested. 2014, the Federal Council issued their first assessment on the risks of cryptocurrencies. At the time, they called it virtual currencies, and basically said there's no risks involved by having this technology evolve here. So, which was very, very early when it comes to an official government statement about what is now cryptocurrency issues. And from then onwards, the capital of Zug, they started to be very embracing the technology. They started accepting Bitcoins for payments in 2016, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
They did their first trials with digital identity, 2017. And so locally in Zug, it was a very, very open situation for startups to come there and really be present. And then over the years, FINMA, the national regulator, also was kind of, he was regulating, but he was kind of open. And so the first ICO rules that came out in 2017 were supportive. That brought this whole ICO rush to Switzerland, and a lot of startups came here because of that, because of the favorable regulatory environment.
We saw, though, the downfall of ICOs. It left a poor taste in a lot of people's mouths, and the perception is still lingering as it pertains to the potential of blockchain and cryptocurrency. How have you, as a participant in the industry here in Switzerland, and how has Switzerland itself tried to, or has it been successful in really kind of pushing that perception aside?
As I said, the FINMA guidelines from the beginning, they were guidelines, but they were clear. And so it's always better to have some clear rules than no rules. And the reason why ICO has a bad connotation these days, or a bad reputation, is because in some countries across the globe there were no rules and things just happened. And there was a lot of, obviously, speculation and a lot of also criminal behavior. But with the rules that we had here, we were very early on regulating something that still, it was Wild West. It was a crazy time when it comes to how much money could be raised in 2 days with a piece of white paper. But it was at least regulated, and I think we had some also issues here, but it was much less than elsewhere, where it has been banned because of all these issues and stuff like this. So it was kind of an evolution on how these things were experienced.
So early regulation, clarity, and a framework that blockchain companies could really play in.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number one. Number two, talent. Education, academia, this relationship, very critical to growth in innovative technology like blockchain. What's happening in the academic world that supports this technology?
For instance, a good example is ETH, the Technical University here in Zurich. Don't quote me, but it's been said that they have issued the most research papers on blockchain in the whole world since they started working with it. And so it's a hidden gem in that sense that ETH, I guess, is one of the leading universities globally when it comes to doing the research of this technology. And there's a lot of people that were originally also core developers of Bitcoin involved, coming from the ETH school. Then the second example I would like to mention is the University of Zurich. They have just founded what is called the Blockchain Institute. There's 22 professors from all over University of Zurich, from all fields of research, legal, societal topics, obviously finance, and obviously technology, coming together and basically incorporate this topic in a consistent way into the university. And so I think I've not heard of any of this like anywhere else in the world. It's really that real focus on how people can come together and work on this, and foster the education around it as well.
And one of the critical things as well is this almost this political culture that exists here in Switzerland. Describe it for people who don't necessarily understand how it works here and why this bottoms-up approach to being a citizen here in Switzerland is very complementary to even the decentralization philosophy of blockchain.
Yes, I mean, Switzerland is a decentralized country in the political sense. We have what is called a direct democracy. So that means that each and every single Swiss person can raise any topic and have it voted on as a referendum by the Swiss, basically all the Swiss people. So you need to collect 100,000 signatures if you want to raise any topic to the Swiss population, and then we have to have a referendum on it and vote and basically decide yes or no. And that's a core element of the strength of this country. Then we have 26 cantons or states. They're very small. Switzerland as a country is small, but the states are sometimes much smaller even, obviously in comparison to other countries. And they are very autonomous as well. So the autonomous levels are top down. The national level is very weak in that sense. There's obviously the national security, army and these things, but then the rest is pretty much on the cantonal level decided. And the big things are on the communal level or the city level. And then individuals have this power. So basically we can also, if the parliament decides a law, we can again raise a referendum against that law, and 50,000 signatures can actually turn a law down that the parliament has voted in. And so that's a very powerful thing. And that, when I learned about blockchain, obviously, is very much the same thing. Blockchain is a decentralized technology. There's no central power that actually determines or stands for the trust. So intermediaries are not needed anymore in Switzerland. The intermediaries obviously are the parliament and the ministers, but we have much more power as individuals. And so that very much complemented this trend with the technology. And I guess that's another reason why Switzerland is embracing this technology so much. We had the president here, Swiss president, for our first year anniversary. He's a big fan, he's a big spokesperson for the blockchain movement. We also had the National Bank's president here, and so we have it's a small country, we get together easily, much more easily.
So you just name dropped two of the most important people who just showed up at your first year anniversary, but it really reflects actually the unison approach of blockchain in Switzerland. So you have the president from a federal level, from government level, top government level, alongside banking industry, which is the strongest, most powerful industry in Switzerland, sitting alongside blockchain. This really feels like the underpinnings of the ecosystem that is unique to Switzerland here. Why do you think those relationships, number one, are there? And number two, how do those relationships help blockchain?
Well, it gives it credibility, of course. I mean, there's still, if you read the average press article about blockchain, it's still about Bitcoin hype up and down. The price of Bitcoin seems to be the biggest issue journalists have these days. And it's actually anything but that. And that's what helps when we have people, as I say, like the National Bank's president coming here talking about potential impact of Libra on the world economy. These things are giving us credibility because there's obviously these things are being taken serious, and it's much more a much more focused approach to explain this topic as well from that level, and then giving us as a startup community and a community that is also had, as we said earlier, that these issues around the hype with ICOs gives us still the trust to actually do something in a strategic, in a sustainable way, and with their presence at these events, for instance, obviously that gives both parties a good working relationship for the future.
Give us a sense of the innovation that we can expect to see out of Switzerland, and you're in a position to be able to answer that authoritatively because you are a startup hub. So you work alongside, you're also CEO of Procivus, another startup. Tell us what kind of innovations we're going to see out of Switzerland in the coming year.
Well, what was just breaking news on the last few weeks was obviously that the first two startup banks in Switzerland got a full banking license. And that, I think that will now change the perception from the traditional financial industry much more as well. So I mean, ultimately there are now two banks, proper banks, that have a full license. They can take on money from clients, and they can basically give loans to clients. They can institutionally trade cryptocurrencies. They can storage. They have a storage offering. So all of this is now really becoming a professional business. This is not some decentralized exchange thing anymore that nobody really understands, but this is now proper business. And so that has a huge impact. That was the very least of the very latest of announcements we had. We had Libra coming to Geneva, incorporating the foundation there. That's another big news from the summer. What I think is, and I'm, again, as a banker, I should be in that field, but I'm not, because I have seen the technology to be an enabler for a much more fair and much more democratic society going forward. And that's what Perceivis is all about. We are building solutions with blockchain where it makes sense. Sometimes blockchain doesn't make sense, and sometimes it's too early. If, like we are working with governments, it's still a difficult sell to go to a government and explain them blockchain and then try to convince them to use it for a digital identity, for instance, like is what we are building. But in the long run, I believe what we are doing with blockchain in the context of digital democracies, digital societies, e-voting is a big topic for me. Again, coming from Switzerland, obviously we vote every 3 months on topics that have been risen by the citizens. That's a big thing, and I believe that's going to be one of the killer apps on blockchain will be e-voting. And that's why we heavily research that. That's why we heavily invest together with the University of Zurich or others academic partners in this topic.
Describe the energy of the blockchain community here, and the people and the students that are coming in to this industry as we speak.
We have a lot of international people here, so that's what I always liked, and that's also in my job at the firm, at the bank. I was always in the international division, investment banking, because that's what I like, and that's represented here. We have Bitmain here, a Chinese company, one of the biggest one in the world. We have a lot of American startups that came to Switzerland for the regulatory security that they're building. We have a lot of really forward thinkers. We are here in the office of the Centrum, the think tank that is thinking 20 years ahead of what is the impact of blockchain on us as a society when it comes to autonomous self-managing vehicles like this satellite that we have back there, or a house that maintains itself and owns itself. So all these DAO ideas that we have heard about. So that's kind of the mix of things that we have here. And so it's a very dynamic, a very enthusiastic environment to be in.
You know, to have a think tank to actually commit brain cells to thinking about how societies are going to be formed differently because of blockchain. You mentioned one, the house. What will our house look like with technology? Blockchain merging with AI and quantum and 5G, 6G, whatever G it's going to be in future.
It's going to be autonomous, and the thinking is that we will have a building like this, a co-working space and a hub, where basically there's no management team anymore that runs around, because everything can be done. You can book your meeting room. The meeting room is basically then automatically ordering the cleaning lady after the thing. You get paid. You pay by cryptocurrencies, of course, and everything is totally autonomously managed. And the same with self-driving cars. Ultimately, the cars will own themselves. They will basically they will do everything basically fully autonomous because of the whole environment they are running on, which is blockchain and cryptocurrencies and so forth. So that autonomous future is what we believe we'll see happening thanks to blockchain, thanks to DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. And
in the meantime, back in this century, in this decade, in this year, it is still very much driven by the ideas and the hard work of the people. At the end of the day, Switzerland is still a very small country, but some would say it hits above its weight class. Do you think that, though, when it comes to adoption and enterprise, that's going to happen outside of Switzerland, because this country is 8 million, and you take a look at China, it's 1.4 billion people. Where are we going to start seeing enterprise adoption on a mass scale?
I think it's not going to be in Switzerland. While we have this great support and this great vision also from a highest political level, I'm also conscious of the fact, and that's why Perceivis, my company, I found that we are very far behind when it comes to e-government, for instance. And so adoption of technology in the government context here is very slow. And I think this is the same for the financial center, the traditional financial center. The banks, while my former employer basically has been dabbling in blockchain already very early on in 2015 as well. They opened the first blockchain lab in London. There's not much real things happened since, so you cannot see much of these banks having developed like whatever. I mean, the big topic of the moment is tokenization. There's no tokenized funds or something like this yet. Of course not, because it's also very early. So I think it's going to be not here that we will see these applications develop the fastest. And you mentioned China and Asia. I mean, that's where the music plays. I'm going to Seoul again. I was there now 3 times. That's where I see startups that are live. I mean, one of my favorite examples that I mentioned always is there's this tokenized art startup that you can actually go and buy a piece of a Banksy now and look at the piece in a basement, in a cave that you can access thanks to your piece that you get a QR code for, and really cool stuff. And it's happening. They're trading these pieces of this Banksy in a digital way, and that's not something we've seen here so much happening, but obviously it's also going to catch up.
Well, thanks for a glimpse of the future right here in Switzerland.
Thank you for coming by.
Danny, thank you. If you like that, come back for more. All you have to do is click like, always comment, we love that, and subscribe. And don't forget to watch the next one.